Hello guys, it's been a while, but here I am, coming back. So in this video, I wanted to share with you lessons from a 30-year-old polyglot, and the 30-year-old polyglot is obviously me. So the first thing I wanted to share is I'm a polyglot, but it doesn't mean that I'm perfectly fluent in all my languages. In fact, it's absolutely normal for polyglots or multilinguals, if you prefer that word, to speak all their languages in different degrees of fluency. You might be able to speak one but not write a language. You might be able to read it but maybe not speak it that well, etc., etc. At the end of the day, multilingualism comes in different shapes and forms. Obviously, I don't think we should exaggerate and say that you are fluent in a language even if you can only count in it, because I think that's too extreme, essentially. But I also think it's important not to disqualify your languages just because you're not perfectly fluent, whatever that means, right? Another thing that I kind of want to add to that point is that I feel like it's a bit strange how we consider fluency to be just the speaking ability in a language. You know, if you can speak it well, then you're fluent. But we don't really take into account the other language skills like reading, writing, and listening, which are super important as well. I really believe that you can be fluent in a language even if you don't, for example, write it well or you can't read it well. You know, we shouldn't really be using all these very high standards of fluency to decide who's fluent and not fluent in a language. Oh wait, before we carry on, I would like to thank Language Reactor for sponsoring this video. Collabs like this one are what will allow me to make even more content in the future, so again, thank you very much. So what is Language Reactor? Formerly called Language Learning for Netflix, Language Reactor is an add-on you install on your browser that completely changes the way you learn languages. And it's free. So let's have a look at how it does that. Okay, so once you've installed the add-on, turn it on. Normally, on YouTube you can only display subtitles in one language at a time, but with Language Reactor you can display two languages at the same time. That's really useful if you're getting started watching films or TV shows with subtitles, because you don't have to pause your show and use a dictionary. You'll also notice the little boxes that appear when you hover over a word. They'll give you the translation. If you're premium, you can also save the words and refer back to them later. There's a lot of options that I like as well, such as the arrows on the left side, which can take you to the previous or next subtitle, with an option to simply repeat the current subtitle. That's really useful if you want to re-listen to what a person has said without having to manually click on the playback bar. On the right side, you can also see all the subtitles of the video, and you can find all the saved words as well. Very recently, Language Reactor has launched a new feature called Phrase Pump. Phrase Pump works a little bit like a flashcard app, but different. I'll use French for this demo, but it's available in many other languages as well. Once you are on the website, you click on Start Practice. If you use it for the first time, you will be asked what level you're at. For this video, we will use a beginner level. Then, Phrase Pump will automatically come up with words that are appropriate to your level. For every sentence or word you will see, you will decide whether you know the word already or not. If you do, you click Known, and you'll move on to another word. Once you find a word that you're not confident with, you can start practicing it. Then, every time you feel like you're confident enough with the word, you can move on to the next one. You can also save the sentences that you'd like to go back to later. They will all be in the Saved Items section. In that section, you can even search for specific words and see how they're used. For example, if I want to know how to use the verb trouver, I just type it in, search it, and it will show me some sentences with the verb trouver in it. The second lesson I wanted to talk about is your language levels will change over time and not always in the direction you want. This is due to life, I guess, and a little bit because of linguistics. As time goes by, our circumstances change, and that means that sometimes we stop practicing or speaking a language, or we start speaking another one more. And as a result, some languages will become stronger, while others will become weaker. That's why if you want to maintain your languages, you have to intentionally use them on a regular basis. Things like watching TV shows, reading books, finding people to practice it with, you know the drill. But doing it is harder if in your environment that language is not sort of naturally present, or if you just don't have a lot of time to dedicate to language learning. So sometimes you just have to be a bit creative and find ways to make that regular, let's say, constant practice happen. Number 3, natives will always know you're not a native speaker, with some tiny exceptions. I always get backlash for it because people think I'm trying to discourage everyone, I'm saying that something is impossible, so therefore I'm being negative. But I think people are just misunderstanding what I'm actually trying to say. I'm not saying don't bother learning a language because you will never be good enough. Because you don't need to sound native to be amazing at a language. My point is more that if sounding native is your goal, it's quite unlikely you will ever reach it. Of course, some people will pull it off. Like, obviously, you will find lots of examples of people that get so close that people think they're just native speakers. But a large majority, an overwhelming majority, I would even say, will never reach that goal. So I don't think it's worth it trying to reach something that's so far out of your reach. To be honest, I think this desire to sound native comes from the idea, or the assumption rather, that a native speaker is the only goal possible. For me, I feel like when you're not a native speaker, your goal should be to be a non-native speaker, because that's what you are, right? I'll even add that I'd rather people notice I'm not a native speaker, because at least like they can acknowledge the fact that I've made the effort of learning their language, rather than passing as a native speaker and no one notices. And it's like, I spent years trying to learn your language, at least give me some credit. Come on. Well, at least I like to see it that way. Lesson number 4 is it takes time, years, and you'll experience quite a few moments of failure, let's say. The tricky thing about a language is that anyone that's reached a really high level of proficiency in a language knows that it takes years to really master and be comfortable and be a smooth speaker of that language. Of course, there's exceptions. If you spend 5 hours a day, every day, maybe in a year you can reach a pretty decent level in your language. But I feel like for most people that's not really realistic because of time constraints and just energy levels, I guess. I can't say I'd have the energy to do language learning 5 hours a day, every day, no exceptions, you know. And that's why I get so frustrated when courses, and I've seen that the other day, they promise you a B1 level in 45 days with 10 minutes of language learning. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. In fact, I've always refused to sponsor a company that will claim anything like that, because that's just bullshit. Let's just say it. Don't get me wrong though, I'm sure in, a few months or a couple of weeks, or with 15 minutes a day for, however long, you can learn a lot. I'm not saying you can't learn anything, because that would be the exact other extreme of my argument. But, it's important to manage your expectations and not think that in a year I'll be able to, just talk about politics with native speakers, while it's something that takes, a long time to achieve. Lesson number 5, and this one got me a bit of, well, I wouldn't say hate, but there was a bit of debate on Twitter about this. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, the link is in the description box below, so you can follow me. I'm very active on it. I talk about languages, linguistics, all things related, really. So the point is, language learning is not always supposed to be fun. You can even extend it to any skill that you learn. Language learning is a skill. You could be learning the piano, you could be learning cooking, you could be learning sewing, etc., etc. And when you learn a new skill, it takes a lot of effort, because it's something you've never done before. So you need to learn something new, obviously. But to learn something new, to some extent, you need to step out of your comfort zone. And doing so is uncomfortable. And when I say uncomfortable, I mean emotionally uncomfortable. I'm not saying you should be always unhappy and feeling frustration and being like, yay, I feel like crap, so amazing, nice. What I'm suggesting though is that when you leave your comfort zone, some negative emotions come up, like frustration, the feeling that you're not doing well enough, you're not progressing quickly enough, and all that stuff. I'm sure you've experienced some of that at least once. But 99% of the time, that's a good thing. That's just a sign that you're pushing yourself, stepping out of your comfort zone. I will repeat it 10 times if I need to. Of course, do try to make it as fun as possible, because there's so many uncomfortable emotions we can take until we just give up and find it way too difficult or tedious. What I'm saying, I guess, hopefully my point is clear, is that you will have some sort of negative emotions every now and then, and they're okay. It doesn't always mean you're doing something wrong, or that it's impossible for you to learn a language or anything like that. Don't make it something about you. And the last lesson I wanted to share, which is kind of like advice, I suppose, as well, is to surround yourself with like-minded people. To be honest, you will have noticed by now that a lot of the lessons that I've shared in this video so far can apply to all aspects and areas of your life. But sometimes when you are in an environment where people aren't really into language learning, they might not discourage it, but they might not encourage it either. I think it's important to sort of meet people that are like-minded, either in real life, that's, I think, ideal, to be able to have face-to-face interactions, either with people that are, language hobbyists, I like that phrase, like you, or people that can help you learn your language in one way or another. Because at the end of the day, I think languages is something that is social. And I'm not saying you should be going all out, meeting lots of people, because if you're an introvert that might be difficult. I tend to be introverted myself, actually, but at least having some kind of support system. For example, it can be Twitter. On Twitter there's a big language learning community, and you can connect with so many people that learn the same languages that you, and you can ask them for advice. It's just to kind of find some pockets of motivation, of solidarity, I guess, because we're all in this together. Obviously, do feel free to join my Twitter as well, because I talk about languages practically all day long, every day. I like to question ideas and beliefs we have about language and create some debate so we can share ideas and good practice. And it's just a space for language learning, really, but there's also so many other people to follow. So I hope to see you there. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. I always try to make my videos useful. If you want to leave any comments, you can. Don't forget to like, subscribe and all that stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.